Might want to think twice before gifting your teen or preteen a smartphone this Christmas. A new study of more than 10,500 12-year-olds from the University of Pennsylvania found that kids who owned smartphones had a 31% higher chance of developing depression, 40% higher odds of becoming obese, and a 62% higher likelihood of having poor sleep habits. Here to discuss all of these findings with me is CBN's Billy Hallowell. Billy, a lot of these numbers are really not that surprising. It's stuff that we've known anecdotally for years. We've talked about it here on CBN News. But this is one of the most comprehensive studies that's ever been done. I mean, more than 10,500 kids. So, what are your thoughts on these findings?
Yeah, I think it's important that we have research like this because a lot of people are denying this and a lot of people
Yeah,
are not paying attention. And so when you have a big study like this, the hope is that parents are waking up to it. And obviously, we have to dig deeper into this, right? Because is it the smartphone itself or is it what is on the smartphone? Is it the social media, right? You've got to pick the pieces of this apart. We have known for a long time now, as you said, that certain social media platforms even have internal research showing the dangers that these platforms are to young people, even as adults. And let's just get candid here. Our addiction to smartphones can be detrimental. I am turning off Instagram a day, 2 days, 3 days at a time. You can do that internally. You can turn it off so that you don't log into it. And I feel great at the end of that. And I have to ask myself, well, why is that? So when we're talking about children, it is not shocking in light of that past research to see what this is saying. Now, the depression stood out to me. I think it was the 31% more likely to be
yeah.
depressed, the odds of depression, because again, you're comparing your life to other people's lives. It forces you, even as adults, to do that. So I'll stop there, but I think this is important because it gets it out into the media. We're talking about it, and hopefully parents do a better job of policing how their kids are engaging with these tablets or with these phones rather.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in reading this data, I was thinking like I'm 33 years old and I don't know how always to control myself with this little block. So it's like, how am I going to think that a 12-year-old is equipped to do what I sometimes struggle to do? Now, a lot of parents ultimately justify getting their kids smartphones for safety reasons. That was one of the big factors in this research. They want to know where their kids are and what they're doing. And those are good things to want. I mean, Billy, you have kids, and I know that you want to be aware of where your kids are, what they're doing, what friends they're with, all that stuff. But smartphones, of course, carry some pretty serious risks with them. You mentioned social media, but even the darker corners of the internet, there are some really big risks there, like predators, accessibility to pornography, and ultimately even kids just choosing to play games or use apps or watch videos rather than actually engaging with their minds and with their bodies and with other kids, right? And with their parents. And one of the researchers, Billy, suggested just get your kids basic flip phones if you just want to keep up with where they are or you want to be able to reach them wherever they are, whatever they're doing. So, what do you think of the temptation, Billy, that so many parents and really all of us have to get smartphones to younger and younger children?
Yeah, I think, look, you've got to pray through this as Christians and you've got to look at the practicality of it. I do
Yeah,
think that, flip phones, dumb phones, they call them, those are great. You can also get a smartphone and get a device like Circle. We've used
totally.
Circle in our house where you're able to shut off different apps, where you're able to actually say no to social media, where you're able to, yes, they may have access to, certain things, the internet or whatnot, but you can monitor it and oversee it. To me, that's another middle ground approach. My daughter has no access to social media, right? She can't get on TikTok. We don't want her on Instagram. We're not allowing that. And so I think there are different ways and parents are going to come to different conclusions on that. But I tend to think a lot of it is the amount of information that they have access to
Hmm.
on these devices, right? And that's where you get into the social media and all these other elements. I will tell you, it is alarming to me how many of my kids' friends, I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, how many of their friends are on TikTok, they're on Instagram, just like you and I would be without a lot of safeguards. That to me is problematic. So you have to figure out where you're going to kind of go with it. But the other thing, when you look at the research, and you brought this up, but obesity, not being as active because you're sitting on your phone. I mean, look, I'm on my phone a lot, an embarrassing amount of time. And we use it for work, but also, going through reels, and, it's very easy to get sucked in. And the fact though, that you also have a 62% higher odd of insufficient sleep, that's concerning for children too, who are growing. They need their brains to be healthy. So there's a lot here, but I would just encourage parents to pray about it and really try to map out what is best for their family in this area.
Yeah, and I should note too that one of the researchers for the study, he suggested, if you do get smartphones for your kids and you have all of those restrictions, Billy, like you said, then make sure, and really this should be for every age. He said whether your kid is young, your kid is older, and even for you yourself, when you're done with the phone and you're going to bed, everybody charges your phone in the kitchen or the dining room or the living room. You leave your phones there and then you go to your bedroom. He said every home should have a no smartphone in the bedroom rule. And I'll admit I'm not good at following that rule myself, but I do think that that is a smart swap to do, right? If you are going to get your kids smartphones or tablets or whatever it is, keep them out of the bedroom and apply that rule to yourself too. Because I think I'm speaking about myself just as much as anybody else. I know that I could benefit from that. So for sure, kids can benefit from it. And Billy, as we're rounding out the conversation, I want to go back to the depression concern one last time, because I think that's a huge one. So a lot of depression concern is linked to the comparison game, which of course our social media apps encourage. And in reading some of that data, it just made me think of Philippians 2, 3, and 4, where Paul wrote, "Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Think of others as better than yourself. Don't look only for your own interests, but take on the interests of others too." So, what are your final thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think that is so powerful and important. And I think especially in a culture where mental health has become such an important facet. I mean, we're watching the downside of what happens when we don't pay attention to our spiritual and mental health. One thing that I'm doing, it's kind of related, but I think it's important, that I just started doing. Usually I'm scrolling on my phone for eons before bed. And I love that no phone in the room rule. I don't know that people are going to follow it, but, doing something else too, like closing the day out with God,
Yeah.
writing in a prayer journal, reading a quick devotional, something simple that sort of calibrates your mind on God before bed, so that you wake up. And obviously I wake up and do a Bible study, but being able to kind of go to bed with that, I think gives you a little bit more of a positive uptick for the morning when you wake up. So I just encourage people to look for that sort of thing to integrate in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Billy Hallowell, thanks for being here to break this one down with us.
Thank you.